What up guys, Coach Nate here, founder and owner of Neighboring Never Fitness, creator of the 7-day OCR planner and the 12-week OCR Champions program. Now, I help decision makers at companies use obstacle course racing as a way to grow teams, cultures, and companies' profits. This is a continuation of the indoor survival guide. And yesterday we talked about how to win the mental game on the home front so you're not going stir crazy indoors. Now, with a lot of the shelter in place, with kind of the mandated staying at home, there's a lot of things you got to think about. And this is, again, the continuation of that indoor survival series. So this will be tip number 3, and we're going to be talking about just about 5 tips for how to prepare better. Now, when I'm talking about kind of preparing better, what I mean is just kind of getting used to this new normal that we're experiencing, and just how to kind of frame everything so that you're actually getting used to what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. First thing that you need to do in order to prepare better is you got to have cash on hand. We kind of covered this in the first video, but what I really want to stress here is you really need to have cash on hand just in case you have any extra emergencies. Getting to and from the bank, that's an extra outing, that's an extra touch point with a lot of other people. You're talking about touching an ATM where a bunch of people have already touched it, so you're running the risk of contracting any type of germs there that way, or the virus as well, just because people are always trying to get to the ATM. And you just want to make sure that you're just able to buy things that you need. And sometimes if you can't get something in a store, you're also able to buy it from a neighbor or just buy it from somebody as a means of exchange. We don't want to have to go to the barter system. Just having cash on hand is just going to circumvent that, where you're trying to be like, all right, as a pair of jeans, can I get three pounds of bacon? You don't want to try to figure out haggling in the parking lot because you don't have any cash on hand. So make sure you have cash. The second part here, another tip is you want to make sure that you have enough gas in your car, right? This is going to help with mitigating how many times back and forth you're going to go. You don't really know how many times you're going to be traveling outside, but you don't want to just be having to actually do something and go somewhere and just not have enough gas to be able to get there. So make sure your car is gassed up. Even if you're not planning to use it too much, it's just good to have 1 to 2 weeks of travel planned out, as if you know that you can get there because you have enough gas in your car. So fill the tank up. Also, what I would say, just a caveat for this, is make sure when you're actually reaching for that pump that you are wearing some type of disposable gloves, or you're washing your hands immediately after and not going back to your car, because you touch the pump, you touch your car, now whatever was on the pump is now in your car, and now you've contaminated your car because you brought your car back to your house, and then you touch your front door. So that's 3 touch points right there immediately, where you brought, say if someone had COVID, coughed in their hand, grabbed the pump, you just brought it into your steering wheel, and now everything in your car and your house. So just make sure you're wiping that off before you grab it, or using a disposable glove and just tossing that thing after. You don't want to take any chances here. Gas is something everyone's going to have to do to get, and then they're going to have to grab that pump. You just don't want to run the risk of that, especially when it's spreading right now. So the next part here is you want to make sure you have food for 1 to 2 weeks. I would say if you can, try to get 2 weeks worth of food. Grocery runs are now becoming a little bit more difficult. As you can see, I'm gonna have to myself go for a grocery run, and I'm mentally preparing for what I'm about to get into, right? You're gonna have to plan this out. Be really strategic. Know where your grocery stores are, know the exit points. Don't get bunched up in a small parking lot. Don't, bum rush a group of people. You wanna avoid any type of Black Friday type of just like mad rush into the store. That's obviously the whole point we're doing this, social distancing. So find stores that you are familiar with, that when they're gonna open, the layout, where everything is, and that way you're not having to deal with mass crowds or just panic buying as well. But 1 to 2 weeks. Try to get 2 weeks if you can. Again, canned foods will last longer. I'm going to link some resources below in the comments section just for how to use canned goods, how to kind of stretch meals out, and just how to kind of organize a couple of those resources so you're not spending a lot of money, but then also making your food last longer. That's really important. The next tip here is you want to avoid the hospital. Okay, right? Avoid the hospital. Obviously, you know, the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. That's going to be the highest risk of contracting the disease because obviously people who are infected are going to go there. So unless you're a nurse or a doctor or any type of medical staff, really try to avoid the hospital, you know, unless you absolutely need to go, unless you have symptoms that are in line with COVID. Obviously, we don't have a test rolled out yet, so really make sure that you're doing your homework in terms of knowing those symptoms, knowing what you need to look for. You can always call an advice nurse so you can kind of circumvent the entire trip there, just because, you know, once you get into that system, it's going to be very hard to navigate it, and it's going to be kind of like, you know, showing up the DMV without an appointment. You're going to be waiting in line a long time. You're going to be dealing with the entire bureaucracy of having to go through your insurance provider, having to deal with making sure you actually have the symptoms. You know, it's just a huge headache. If you can avoid it, try to avoid it. So avoid the hospital at all costs unless, you know, you do have those symptoms. And the last part here is more on security. Right? So you want to make sure you're going through all the normal checkpoints with your house, your car, anything that's valuable. You don't want to leave anything in the car when you're going to, and you're parking your car and then walking somewhere. You just don't want to give anyone an incentive to break into your car, break into your house. Don't be leaving giant boxes in your garbage outside. It tells people you have a lot of things. Just try to be more cognizant of going through the normal checkpoints, locking your doors, making sure that you're creating more of a community with your neighbors so that you're all on the same page, you're talking to each other, you know what's going on. That's really important for your community, and just so that you're watching each other's back, and, you know, if anything suspicious is happening in the neighborhood, you can be on top of it. That's a really great way just to prepare and just kind of avoid things ahead of time. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're giving people an incentive to break in your home or break into your car because you're really careless about, oh, I left the garage door open, you know, my car's open, I'm just washing my car outside, I left the keys in the car. You know, don't be doing things that are just giving people extra incentive. People, when they're desperate, will do really ridiculous things. So you got to make sure that you're, you know, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, doing this by the book. So just quick recap, make sure you have cash on hand. Make sure you're gassing up your car for any extended trips, or just to make sure that you can, you know, make your necessary travel arrangements if you have to. Shop for 1 to 2 weeks of food at a time. Avoid the hospital if possible, and just make sure you're securing the home front, and, you know, you're locking your doors at night, locking your car, putting everything where it needs to be, and just coordinating with your neighbors for that sense of community, and just so you have each other's back. Now, we're going to continue this series. We'll go into how to contribute to your community and how to give something back, and just how to get a little more creative and do more with less. So that'll be our next talk. Again, I'll link some more resources below, but stay safe out there and take care of each other. I'll see you tomorrow.